I'm Bill DeYoung. This is the Catalyst Sessions for Friday. Please join me in welcoming Billy Taylor and Chris Nunley from the Royal Guardsmen from the city of Ocala, Florida. The Royal Guardsmen, as I've explained numerous times before, were the very first Florida rock and roll band to sell 1 million copies of a single record. This was in 1966 and 67. It was called Snoopy versus the Red Baron, but you knew that already. Hey, Bill.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Doing all right. Chris, how are you, my friend?
I'm audio challenged, but I'm straining to hear every word.
Well, we're getting there. They do have Wi-Fi in Ocala, don't they, you guys?
Yeah.
So listen.
Maybe you need Garrett Morris in the corner doing the...
Yeah, right. I was thinking that we could just kind of go back and kind of retrace the story, which is an amazing story. Chris, let me start with you. Ocala band, but you guys were still in high school, but you used to come to Tampa to play. Is that correct? Back in the mid-60s?
That's close. I was going to the University of Florida when I joined
You're the
the
old
Royal
guy.
Guardsmen.
Yeah.
But yeah, we used to. The first gig I ever played with the Royal Guardsmen was New Year's Eve, 1965, going into 66. And less than a year later, we had a record on the charts headed up to #1.
Absolutely an amazing story. But Tampa, Bill, let me ask you this. Tampa was a place you would come to play. Even at, you're one of the younger guys. Even as a high school band, you'd come to, that's kind of a schlep.
Yeah, I actually had just turned 17, finished my junior year in high school when I got asked to join the band. So that was June of 66. And the band had already played in Tampa a time or two, maybe Orlando. They had started reaching out to become a regional band. And yeah, but we played that summer into the fall. One of our haunts in Tampa was Sacred Hearts Girls School down there. I think we'd also done a Curtis Hickson teen dance where they'd have 3 large bands in the Gasparilla room, and it was a stand-up dance, and those were the kinds of things we were doing down in the Tampa area prior to the recordings taking off.
Now you guys were your cover band like all teenage bands, but you also wrote your own stuff. Like Chris, I know you wrote, and Tom Richards was writing. Billy, your writer. What was the goal then? Did you just want to be like? Did you want to be the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, or did you just want to like get girls? Did you think that far ahead?
I'd say all of the above. You know, it was just a great thing to be in a band back in those days. I was actually trying to put a band together called the Griffins. Chris was actually our mentor back in the spring of 66 before I was asked to audition and got the gig as keyboard player for the Guardsmen in June of 66. And it was just making the good music. We were basically a British cover band. We did an excellent job at the harmonies under Chris's musical directorship. He had just such a great ear. And we were just enjoying as teenagers playing the music and seeing the crowd response.
I want to bring in a photograph here of somebody, and this is where things start to change. That's Dick Holler on the left and Phil Gernhardt on the right. Now, Phil had produced Chris, the first single, which is Baby Let's Wait for Lowry Records. Didn't do that well. But Phil and Dick had written a song. This is famous. This is the big lead-in, folks. But Chris, can you tell me the story of how Gernhardt brought you Snoopy versus the Red Baron?
Yes, we were playing at a Shower of Stars show at Curtis Hickson Hall in Tampa. And I don't believe that building's there anymore.
No, it's not.
But we were setting up in the afternoon for a show. We were backing Monty Rock III. Who also was Yowza, yowza, yowza. What was that band?
Oh, Discotheques and the
Yes,
Sexolettes. Yeah.
Discotheques and
That
the
was a lot later, but
Sexolettes.
yeah.
But we were, as I say, in the process of setting up our equipment, and this guy comes walking in, and he's got just a sheet from a yellow legal pad
Uh-huh.
with the lyrics to Snoopy versus the Red Baron on it. And he said, "Hi, I'm Phil Gernhardt. I'm a record producer, and I think this song could be a big hit. Why don't you take a look at it?" And of course, Snoopy was at the height of his sitting on his doghouse and flying around with the
That was-
Curse You Red Baron.
Yeah, that was the year for it.
And
66, yeah.
you know, I was a Peanuts fan, but I looked at the lyrics and I said, Snoopy this, Snoopy that, and I said, all right. And he says, what I need is just 3 or 4 chord changes, simple, with a military feel on the drum, snare drum. So we said, okay, yeah. I took the yellow legal sheet and put it in my equipment box. And we used to rehearse every day or every other day at Olin Richards' house, which is Tom Richards' dad.
Yeah, your guitar player. Yeah.
And we would, it was like Thursday, Phil was going to be there Friday or Saturday, and we hadn't done anything with the song. So Barry said, hey, Gernhardt's going to be here in the next day or two. We ought to throw something together and make it real corny and country-ish sounding, and he won't like it. He'll leave us alone. Well, so we put together pretty much what you hear on the record. It was just after the turn of the century.
It's very much like one of those
So Phil
old Johnny
listened to
Horton records. I think what Holler had intended, like Battle of New Orleans and that kind of stuff. The Johnny Horton military feel kind of stuff.
Sink the Bismarck was sort of where he wanted the cadence.
That was kind of what.
Yeah, where Gernhardt had the idea to put the cadence in there.
Well, it's a novelty song, okay?
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, you guys were kind of a serious rock and roll band. What did you just think it was a stupid song or what, Chris?
Well, Phil had taken a song that Dick Holler had written back in the early 60s, 62 maybe, just a straight, like Billy said, a historical ballad about the Red Baron. And a lot of stuff was the same as far as the verses go. I think Phil punched up the chorus with a 10, 20, 30, 40 part.
Yeah.
And when Schultz started drawing Snoopy on his doghouse and his flying helmet and goggles, Curse You Red Baron, Phil says, hey, Dick, remember that song you wrote about the Red Baron? Why don't we incorporate Snoopy into that and make it a novelty hit? So Phil was actually shopping the song around to a bunch of bands in the Tampa Bay area to see who came up with a treatment he liked. Well, he liked our version of it, as corny and hokey as it was. And he said, well, we're going down to Fuller Sound Studios in Tampa, and we're going to cut a demo. I'll take it up to New York and shop it around to a bunch of different labels, because Phil was an independent producer.
Yeah. So
that's what he did. And a couple of weeks later, they said, we want a master recording. And 2 weeks after that, I think it was a week before Thanksgiving in 66, Snoopy versus the Red Baron was being played all over the country and actually all over the world too.
It took
on the
off.
Laurie label, because Laurie is the label that wanted to use the song.
It totally took off. I'd like to look. Hey, Billy, tell me about this. Is the Royal Guardsmen's first promotional photograph.
Oh, yeah.
And this is taken at Six Gun Territory, I believe.
In Ocala.
That's you in the middle looking like an ad for a Breck shampoo.
Yeah, for sure. No glasses, yeah.
Tell me about this picture. There's a great story that goes with this photograph.
Well, at that time, that would have been the fall. That was probably October, early November of 66. Things were starting to happen. The record had been pressed and everything, getting ready for release. They needed a promo shot, so we had an excellent photographer here in Ocala, Jim Jernigan's studio. I'm not sure what the correlation was with us going out, being an English cover band, standing on an old wagon in a Western theme town, but that was our very first promo shot. They really weren't keen on letting guys have long hair.
Yeah, you're in high school at this point.
Yeah, so I'm in high school. Tom on the lower right was in high school. John was in high school, the middle on the bottom. Barry was still in high school. So the four of us had actually snuck into a quite well known salon and gotten fitted with wigs about 10 o'clock one night. The wigs came in and they were groomed and everything. So we wore wigs in this picture. As Chris said, he was in University of Florida going to school, and I think Bill was out at the community college here.
That sounds right.
That was the very first promo shot for the band.
The record. I have a picture of the record here. Let's talk about this, both of you. This sucker took off like nobody's business. Once Phil had worked out a deal with Schultz on using Snoopy, it also, which I remember coming up with when I wrote the book about all of this, that it was right after the debut of It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, which had a whole lot of Red Baron, Snoopy and the Red Baron stuff, I think for the first time animated. So the world was ready for this record. And let's just say that it was, and I can say without hesitation, this was the fastest selling single in America in the year 1966. It sold faster than Paperback Writer or Good Vibrations. Didn't outsell them ultimately, but it sold faster. Wildfire is what they call it. And ultimately almost made #1, except for, remind me what kept it from #1?
I'm a believer.
I couldn't leave her if I tried, Bill. So listen, this is my question to you, and Chris, I'll ask you this. You're in college, and you're on TV, and your record is being played everywhere. What do your friends think? Did it help you get girls, I guess?
Yeah, they were, everybody was knocked out as we were. I mean, it was, I guess you'd call it the typical or prototypical overnight success, because we cut the master tape, and I mean, they pressed it right away. And of course you had a different network those days. The DJ copies went out to the radio stations, and it caught on like crazy. Within a month after the record was pressed, it was right up there at #1. The only thing that stopped us from being #1 on Billboard magazine was the Monkees came out with their TV show, and of course that was instant access to all the Monkees stuff. So we still got a bone to pick with the Monkees, because they knocked us out of #1.
I just talked to Mickey Dolenz this year, and next time I get him on the phone, I'll bring this up. You know, but Bill, you were in high school, so what's that like as a high school kid playing a groovy Vox electric keyboard on the biggest selling record in the country? I bet your friends thought you were the coolest thing.
Yeah, we as local kids, you know, here in our county, we had a lot of good, friendly support from high school, you know, the young college guys. I mean, we were well-liked local band because of our decent effort on covers. And believe me, for 6 young teenagers, we really worked hard at our craft every day.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Like Chris said, we practiced every day, Monday through Friday, before the record was even big, before anything took off. Before garage bands, we were a patio band. We set all of our Vox equipment up on the patio at the Richards house every afternoon. And so we had a lot of great local support. Of course, family support was superb. When the record took off, you know, it was sort of weird because it sold 1 million copies in that week before Thanksgiving, is what we were told at the time. And everything just went into high gear. And the kids in the area were hearing it on the radio, so they knew it was a big deal.
Yeah.
But we didn't know that it would be such a big thing nationally, because it was doing well locally and regionally, and our 50, 100,000 watt AM stations out of Jacks and places were playing it and stuff like that. So it was really cool, but we were just sort of local kids, and we just kept on being local kids making good music.
Well, let me ask you both. Did you think, I suppose I would have, had I been you, that, next stop Ed Sullivan Show, and we're going to have 20 hit records in a row, that this is the beginning of something great? I mean, that's a natural way to think. Wouldn't you say, Chris? Did you think this is a sort of a huge, enormous career for us?
Well, I don't think we thought that far ahead, but we did have feelers from the Ed Sullivan Show to be on there. When we got knocked out of #1 by the Simians,
The Simeon.
we lost our shot at Ed Sullivan.
But you did a lot of TV. I mean, the Mike Douglas Show is a favorite one, and a famous clip too. And you did, I think, the Joey Bishop Show.
Yeah,
correct.
And so, notwithstanding the first album, which we talked about, which was kind of rushed to capitalize on the single, you go back into Fuller in Tampa to cut Return of the Red Baron. And I think, let me ask you guys, you've made it clear to me and historically that Snoopy was already starting to feel like a choke chain to you. Like, oh, here's another one. Can't we do that? You were writing pretty good songs.
We got pigeonholed as a novelty, the Snoopy Boys, basically.
Snoopy Boys.
But at the time, it was, boom, up the charts with a bullet. Lori and Phil wanted for us to be able to tour. But with 4 of the guys still in high school, we couldn't do that until Christmas vacation came around.
Yeah.
And then we immediately flew out to the West Coast. We played at the old Cow Palace in San Francisco. We played in Oregon. We played in Washington State.
Seattle.
Yeah, Tacoma.
Oh, that was the Christmas tour. So it was after Return of the Red Baron, the second album. I think this picture behind me is from that album.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're correct, sir.
To me, that's got the greatest concentration of cool songs on it, and to me, it tells me what the Guardsmen could have been, and not to knock it all, but to me, the Snoopy thing started to kind of get old after a while. We'll get to the Christmas record in a minute. Talk to me about the Summer Shower of Stars, though, in '67, the big summer tour, where you toured with, what was it? Oh, here we go. Wait a minute. I've got it here. There's Tommy James and the Shondells.
Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs.
Yeah. Okay, here's a poster for it. I can get it going. Yeah, Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs.
Keith,
98.6.
Yep.
Tommy James and the Shondells, I assume, are the headliners here, but here you guys are. You're all sort of equally billed. How many dates was this? This was summer vacation from high school, I guess. What was this experience like?
Unlike anything we'd ever experienced, for sure.
You all on a bus together?
Yes. Yeah, except for Tommy. Tommy rode in a limo with his wife, and they had no idea where we were going, so they had to follow this bus. And of course, it was an old school diesel bus, so they were sucking up diesel exhaust the whole time. But we were having a great time on the bus. I'd play blackjack with Sam the Sham and a couple of the guys from Tommy's band, Shondells, and Keith and the Wild Kingdom was his band, his touring, and they were good. Well, everybody was good. I mean, they were all well-established and accomplished musicians, so it was a lot of fun.
Was this the sort of thing, Bill, where every town, every kid who was at this show knew your 2 singles by then, by heart?
Right.
And it must have been like that thing you do, where you run on the stage and everybody knows your stuff and they can't wait to see you. Billy, what was this like for you?
Well, I had just graduated from high school, so I had just turned 18, and by this time, Phil and some management people were keeping us moving. They were beginning, the bookings were beginning to get bigger, better, farther away. We were doing a lot of fly dates and stuff like that. Didn't know really what to expect on the bus tour, but side note here, they flew us to New York City. We we all rendezvoused up at the manager who put the tour together at his downtown New York City office. We went downtown on the sidewalk. There's press, blah, 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 kids. And they had this big Euro style black and orange bus with the big black dark windows. It was a decker and a half. All the bands loaded on it. We had, 8 or 10 support people that traveled with us, a tour manager and stuff. They drove down into New Jersey somewhere and took us off of that bus and put us on this old Greyhound bus that had been retired, had a blue roof, no air conditioning, and green sliding windows. The windows were green, tinted dark green. That's where we spent the next 6 weeks.
Right. Welcome home, boys.
It was a wonderful thing. I was small enough I could climb in the overhead rack, and I would literally sleep up there, because a lot of times we'd finish a show at 10, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, load back up, and we would drive 4, 5, 6 hours to the next venue, sleep during the day, and then go do a gig and then do it all over again. So
what were the shows like? Did you play for 20 minutes or 30 minutes because there were so many groups? Was it just do the single and a couple of other tracks? Bye, thanks, fun, leave?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I don't remember precisely, but it was no more than a half an hour.
yeah, 30, 40 minutes each, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, come on, do Snoopy versus the Red Baron. Come on, this other stuff's great, but do the hit. Do the hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Yeah. You don't want to finish too early, so you got to save the hit till the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have another picture to look at here. This one, which this is great because I think, if I remember correctly, this is up at Allegro in New York, where you're recording the Christmas stuff. It was recording Snoopy's Christmas. And for those of you who are looking at this picture going, what are we looking at? That's Chris on the far right. And next to him with the glasses looking very much like Peter Asher is Billy Taylor.
Right.
And the gentleman in the front reaching out is Phil Gernhardt. And we can identify the rest of these guys, but it's the band, and that's Dick Holler and the engineers and blah, blah, blah. The Christmas record, that was written by Hugo and Luigi, as I recall. It wasn't a Dick Holler record,
Right.
which Dick told me he was rather resentful about. But what do you remember about doing that and that experience? Because that was almost as big a hit as Snoopy versus the Red Baron. Chris?
Right. Well, in fact, eventually the Christmas song, Snoopy's Christmas, got certified gold, but we did not receive a gold record for that one. I still have my gold record in my music room wall.
Yeah.
But we had cut the basic tracks, and I remember going back into the studio, and they were adding all the what they used to call sweeteners.
Yeah.
Which was the chimes, the sound effects, airplanes, and all that stuff was being added, and then we did the vocals. Or I might have that order reversed.
Well, but this is a set up shot, like a promo shot. You're listening to a playback.
Yes, yeah. Right. Listen to playback, allegedly. Yeah. But the man right in front of Billy Taylor is Bruce. Do you remember Bruce's last name, Billy?
I sure don't.
He's the engineer, right?
Right. Yeah. He's the guy twiddling the knobs and the sliders. And the one closest to the camera seat is one of the Schwartz brothers.
Gene Schwartz. That's Gene Schwartz, yeah, I believe.
Yeah, they owned,
and it's John Abbott in the back, the arranger.
Right. Then Dick Holler.
Dick Holler, and there's Burdette and Barry Winslow and Tom Richards.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I don't know where Bill Balo was.
Oh yeah, Balo's not in this picture.
Yeah.
I have somewhere in my archives like a different version of this. I wonder if he's like lurking around. I don't know. How interesting.
He was so thin at the time, if he turned sideways, we might have just missed him. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about Balo, if you look at the pictures when you guys are wearing the little sunglasses, he looks so much like Tom Petty.
Oh, yeah.
He had the blonde hair and the bangs and all that, like early Petty. So as we leave 67, which was the really the big year, let me go here. Things are starting to change. You know, Gernhardt is start recording other bands and still trying to grab the brass ring again. Did you feel like, let me put it this way. Do you remember feeling like this is going to end? And when you maybe first got that sense that it wasn't going to last forever, that you weren't going to be the Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
I think that came later, like 69. In 68, we were touring quite a bit.
Yeah.
And the only thing that kind of got us cheesed off was the fact that all Lori wanted was more Snoopy, more Snoopy. Let's do another Snoopy.
Yeah.
They half-heartedly let us cut some original stuff.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. It's on a more than one CD.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they didn't push it.
Well, in 68, let me see if I got this right. You know, Barry left for a while. You guys would kind of left for a while, and the last Royal Guardsmen album is basically Barry and a bunch of session guys, because you guys were doing the road dates. Is that right?
Correct.
Snoopy for President, isn't that true?
That's
Yes.
correct. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm wearing the shirt.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I want one of those. Let's talk after we're done here. I'm going to buy one of those.
Okay.
So Snoopy for President it wasn't the last Snoopy single, but it was, to me, this is what I was getting at. This is kind of where the edge is about to come off, because Gernhardt, the Svengali of the whole thing, his commitment to you wasn't to the band, it was to what the band did and the Snoopy thing. That must have been kind of apparent to you by then. Like, it's not really about us and making us rich and famous and our great musical ability. It's about the dog and the tie-in.
The bottom line for sure.
Yeah.
His bottom line.
Snoopy for President is, I think it's a cool record, and the whole story about how they had to take the RFK intro off, and it's very sad and tragic, the year of the assassinations.
Yeah, it sure was.
But I'll tell you, man, that album is strictly from Hunger. That's the one with all the, like, Bonnie and Clyde and all that stuff on it.
Right.
Didn't the Bye Bye Biplane come from that album though? And you guys still do that. That's a good tune.
Yeah, it's a good tune.
That's an old Irish Rovers song, I think. Maybe.
I know they recorded it. I'm not sure.
I think Holler told me that's where it came from.
Well, he would know.
Well, let's move into 69, because this is when we get into the last great single, which is Mother, Where's Your Daughter and Magic Window, which is a great record. It's a Dick Holler song, and then you guys kind of wrote the B-side. And to me, that's like a stellar Royal Guardsmen single. And to be honest, nobody heard it.
Yeah, they didn't push it.
No. Did you even know it had been issued as a single?
We didn't. I don't even know if we did. I have on our discography here, it was January of 69 is when it was pressed and released, but it didn't even chart or anything.
But it's a cool record.
Magic Window was the first thing that we actually ever cut.
Really? Back in the day?
Yes. Do you remember that, Billy?
Magic Window came later. The very first song that we cut was Leaving Me.
Leaving Me.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, Magic Window. Magic Window was,
because Leaving Me and Magic Window, we've talked about this, are my two favorite Guardsmen songs. They really are. So they are married in a way.
I can't believe one of my favorite Guardsmen song is Leaving Me.
Yeah.
When I go back and listen to that, I just cannot believe, had that been pushed, that it really could have been a bigger hit. It was never a hit, but I mean, it was just such a great Beatlesque sounding song of the day.
Great energy to it. I think that's one of the examples of where you and Chris and Barry and maybe Tom were all singing together. There's a lot of harmony, and a lot of those songs, especially from 66, remind me of Buffalo Springfield, which was that era. that there was something really tight and tangible about that sound. Ultimately, it ended. You guys, why don't you each, Chris, let me start with you. I mean, in '69, you played the Felt Forum in New York. Things were happening, but ultimately it stopped. Why did it stop?
Well, by that time we had 3, maybe 4 of our original members, because Barry had quit and John had quit. And well, I think Billy, you were out then too when we played New York, opening up for the Guess Who.
The second time, that was June of ~66. Barry and I quit for just different reasons in May of '69.
'69, yeah.
Mhm.
But you can see, Chris, you can see the writing on the wall, right? This isn't gonna last forever.
Yeah, it was on a downward spiral. And by fall, early winter of '69, I was lived out in Kansas City, Missouri, recording some other stuff with some boys from Tennessee. The band was called Mulligan, and it was a good band. We had fun with it, but the album we cut never really did anything.
I have to look that one up. Bill, Bill, was this when you went back to playing the piano in the saloon at Six Gun Territory?
I was actually doing I got out of high school and we did the Sham Summer Shower of Stars tour.
Yeah.
And then for the next 2 semesters, I was actually in college, and I would fly out and meet the guys if they were on the road. If not, we'd all fly out Wednesday or Thursday and come back Tuesday. And I was still in college. And so when I left the band in May of '69, I went back to college that year. I started taking my B3 and playing in a little motor lounge out by the interstate.
I forgot you used to strap a B3 around. I forgot about that.
I hated that. And then I ended up in 1970 getting a weekend gig playing honky-tonk ragtime piano for a saloon show at our Western theme park, Six Gun here in Six Gun Territory here in Silver Springs, right by Ocala. And I did that for about 2.5 years while I actually commuted to Gainesville and got a degree up in University of Florida.
Well, you guys are both still making music, and Balo is as well. Like the two of you still live in the Ocala area. I mean, Bill Balo is still up there as well. Does Bill play with one of you guys in your various bands?
He had been for years with our band, the local band is called Crossfire.
Crossfire.
And when the COVID pandemic hit, Bill said over the holidays last year, he had been thinking about just retiring. And then when COVID hit, he says, I'm done. Because Bill has had asthma and breathing issues all of his life. And he's just scared to death of catching the COVID-19.
Understandable.
And he said he wasn't enjoying playing anymore, just doing it for the money. But
Tom, of course, left us quite a few years ago. John lives up north somewhere, and Barry's in what, Kentucky?
Missouri.
Oh, something like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we are out of time, you guys, but I can't thank you enough. This has been really wonderful. And I will say, which I've always said since we met, that some of these records have really, really stood the test of time. And for those of you watching this, I would suggest go around the Snoopy songs and listen to some of the rest of their stuff, because some of it is awful damn good. Billy Taylor, Chris Nunley, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Bill.
you're welcome, and
yourself,
thank you,
bud.
Bill. Always a
Say
pleasure
again?
to talk about it.
We're
Yes,
talking over each other.
absolutely.
Chris, take care, man. See you, Bill.
Take care.
All right, man.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.